One of those things are state voter ID laws, and they're on the wrong side on this one. The American public overwhelmingly supports voter ID. There's, and I actually talk about this in my book, Deprogramming Democrats, quite a bit. That you need an ID to do just about anything. You can't rent a car. You can't rent a hotel room. You can't get an apartment. You can't buy liquor. You can't go to a health appointment. You can't do anything without an ID. But now, the most fundamental thing that affects the outcome of our country and the future for our children, you can't require an ID for. And, I used to kind of believe that if you were a really old person who maybe was born in the country, you wouldn't have access to some of the documents that might be necessary to prove citizenship and prove to get an ID. But I don't think that holds any water. And the fact that it's sort of held up as a racist policy to require an ID, I think is
Yes.
extremely derogatory to Black people and people of color. They can get an ID for all of the other things they need an ID for. And so I think the very first thing is that, let's require voter ID nationwide. And I think that they're talking about like polling places being closed and all sorts of things around access, but they really don't focus on integrity. I think most Americans would support a national holiday so people could vote. I think that might still, you might need a couple of days, because some people who work in retail, for example, their national holidays, they don't close, they're actually open. So you want to provide everyone with that opportunity to vote. And I agree with that. If you are eligible to vote, I think if you can't figure out how to make it somewhere to vote, it's not just a right, it's also, in my opinion, a responsibility. You are looking at your views, and your vote will help determine the future of this country. And so figuring out how to get to the polling place, I think if you have a significant disability, if you're uh, a member of our military and stationed overseas, maybe you should have access to a mail-in ballot. I don't think that mail-in ballots should be used in any other way, for people. I think and you can look at, I can't remember the study, but it was a nonpartisan study that came out maybe sometime around 2012 or 2013. And it basically said that mail-in balloting is the biggest threat to election integrity. It's the easiest way to commit
Yes.
fraud, and the hardest to verify. So I don't think we should rely on that. And I also think we ought to look at the role of technology. I don't trust voting machines. I don't trust the software. You could go in 2019 and you'd see a ton of Democrats talking about how easy it is to reprogram these machines.
Yes.
And then
Because
all of a
they tried to
sudden,
they tried to do the same thing Trump did in 2020, but they tried to do it in 2016. Not to the
right, with
degree that he
Russia.
did, but they tried the same thing. Yeah.
And so I
Everybody
think,
conveniently forgot about that.
yeah, it was the most secure election ever in 2020. And now, while I can't sit here and say I can prove to you, although Tulsi Gabbard has said that there is some there in what happened in 2020, meaning that there is evidence of potential fraud. I just think getting the voting machines out of our process would make a lot of sense, and getting back to here's a paper ballot, and mark your choice here, and those kind of things. So, but to completely ignore the election integrity side and only talk about access, I think harkens back to a time when there was actual voter suppression, when there was racism that prevented, Black people in the South from voting. We don't live in that time anymore. And we need to focus on, in my opinion, ensuring that everybody who's eligible to vote can cast a vote, and that all of the eligible ballots get counted and accurately counted and reported.